chamber through the rear doors, through reception, and assemble in the car park at the front of the building and wait further instructions. I would like to welcome at this point, we have Justin Hackney, Caroline Jackson, Tony McGinty, and Chris, is it not Chris Miller? Oh, Justin's in the way. Carl, that's it, Carl. But sorry about that, I knew it was, could see part of it, just memory went. And there might be some others that join along the way. But anyway, welcome everybody. Just a reminder to turn your microphones on when speaking and turn them off when you finish speaking. So first off, apologies please, Emily.
Thank you, Chairman. We've received apologies from Councillors Carter, Young and Parkin, and we also have Councillor Bunny in attendance today as a replacement for Councillor Young.
Thank you. 2, declaration of members' interests. If any member has an interest that suddenly comes to light throughout the agenda, please let us know. Go on to item 3, minutes of the last meeting on the 18th of October 2023. To confirm as a correct record the minutes of the meeting on the 18th of October. Can I have a proposer and a seconder, please? Proposed by Councillor Mark Whittington and seconded by Councillor Rob Kendrick. All in favour? Excellent, thank you. Any abstentions? Thank you. And any against? Or any comments? No. Thank you. Announcements. The only one is that I have met with Martin Samuels last week, our new Director of Adults, and we had a brief, good discussion about what, where, how, and everything else. And unfortunately, he couldn't be with us today because it's one of the adult conferences down in Bournemouth. So he's gone down there for the adults conference with Wendy Bokit as well. So we'll get a update at the next council meeting from how it's all gone and other matters, i.e. like CQC, etc., later on when he's at our next agenda. Other than that, no other announcements. So on that note, we'll go on to the first main item agenda of the Wellbeing Service recommissioning. Here for this we have Tony McGinty and Carl Miller to just summarise up. Thank you, welcome.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here this morning to talk to you about some service review activity we've been doing on a service that's been part of the range of preventative services that the County Council makes arrangements for local people since 2014. Many of you may know this service by its kind of operating public-facing name, which is Wellbeing Links. It's a service that's currently provided by a partnership of the district councils in Lincolnshire and commissioned by the County Council. So I'll start with a little bit of a background to why we reviewed this service at this point in time. The last time we relet the contract for the service was in 2018. So it's quite some time ago now, and when considering how to manage the remaining stages of that contract, we came to the conclusion that so much had changed in the architecture of the wider health and social care system since 2018 that it was timely to have a look at how the wellbeing service fitted within that, whether the fit was still right, gaps and overlaps that had developed in the intervening period. And of course we had the COVID pandemic in the middle of that contract period as well, which has made the service operate in a way that it wasn't entirely as it was originally specified for a range of reasons that I know members will be aware of. So fundamentally we've undertaken a fairly rapid service review of this service. We launched it earlier on in the summer, and our intention is to ask the executive to make a decision in December with a view to us going back out to the market for the next version, next iteration of the service early in 2024, so the early part of January 2024. 2024, so to give members a bit of a feel for the timetable and process that we're in. Having said it was a rapid review, we've done a pretty thorough review. We've looked at the contract, as you would imagine. We've talked to service users. We've talked to stakeholders. We've talked to the delivery organisations, obviously, that are running the service currently. And we have also talked to the big strategic partners in health and care about the service and the way it fits into the system. We've done a little bit of talking to potential other providers of the service to get a sense from them about what kind of market response we might get if we were to go back out and ask the market to look at this service. From that, we've produced quite a lot of detailed documentation, which I've summarised in the report that's in front of you today. So to just give you a whisk through the report that's in front of you, the council has a range of responsibilities to provide preventative services to its local population. They're derived from a range of national strategies and policies, the Care Act probably being the most predominant one, where there's clearly an expectation that councils will both, alongside providing their adult social care responsibilities, they will also take whatever measures they think are reasonable to try and prevent people from people's independence and well-being from deteriorating to the point where they need to use such formal regulated services like adult social care services. This is a clear national mandate expectation that councils will be looking at the preventative opportunities alongside the care opportunities that they want to offer their population. And the wellbeing services is a central plank of the offer of preventative services in Lincolnshire and has been since its inception in 2014. Since the Care Act, there have been a range of other developments, integrated care boards, integrated care systems, integrated care planning, and so on, and all of them make the same kind of assertion for us as a partner organisation that we will make every effort to support, prevent, promote well-being, as well as look after people when they get to the point where they need us to be looking after them. So there's a really strong policy rationale, both national and local policy rationale for doing preventative work, as well as a really strong economic rationale, because the longer we can keep people away from higher cost regulated services, it makes it easier for us to manage demand overall. And obviously, if you speak to the public, they would much rather not have to use our higher level services and maintain their independence and well-being if that's at all possible. So it's really important that we do what we can to support them to do that. So if I start with talking a little bit about what the existing service does, if you like, because I think that's a good framework for talking about what we think it needs to do in the future. So the service is a low threshold, easy access service. To give you a bit of a feel, about 9,000 people a year use this service over its lifetime. Those numbers have gone up and down a little bit over the life of the current contract, largely affected by the COVID years, where the service model was slightly differently delivered. We're seeing a continual increase in demand for access to this service, and that's kind of roughly in line with both the changing demography of Lincolnshire. Our population is getting older, their needs are getting more complicated, and also just because even though the service has been around for quite a long time, it still feels like awareness continues to build about what the service is and what it's capable of doing. So it's a busy service, sees a lot of people, helps a lot of people to avoid deterioration and loss of independence and well-being. And it's really clear from the outcome assessment of the service from service users on the contract that it's quite effective in doing what it was set out to do in the first place. So it does a lot of assessment activity. So as you would imagine, it does quite a lot of assessment activity with people who front up to the service to work out what they need. Its main mode of service delivery then is what we call generic support. So evidence and service user experience suggests it's really important to people that we don't pigeonhole them too much in terms of exactly what they need and exactly how things, how they get supported. So our generic support model allows the provider quite a lot of freedom to agree with the service user exactly what and exactly how they need support with to meet their outcomes. Beyond that assessment, then there's a range of things we do, which the service does, with everything from trying to reconnect people to their communities, to voluntary organisations to help them re-engage with the world if they've lost track of the world. We do small aids, adaptations and equipment provisions for people if that's something that is going to help them to stay living independently as possible where they are. At the moment, the service also does some very hospital-focused activity. So it provides, we have a small in-reach team that works directly in hospitals to look at how the service can help people come out of hospital safely and as well as possible, as well as some element of what we call resettlement service, which will help people's homes, if you like, to be ready for them to come back to if they've been out of home, out of their own homes for a period of time. And the other thing, the other primary service mode that we do is we provide a response to telecare alarms. This service doesn't provide the telecare alarms itself, and it doesn't provide the telephone monitoring centres for alarm systems that people have in their homes. What it does do is say to service users who haven't got the usual informal response arrangements in place, family, friends, neighbours who can go and see them if they need someone to go and see them when they raise an alarm, that this service will, for a small subscription from the service user, will have a team of people who will go in the stead of a family member or a neighbour if that's not available for people. But it is that's a subscription service, and service users make a contribution to that service if they require it. So that's the service in a nutshell in terms of what it does. Our service review indicated that some of the areas of the service activity are really highly valued by partners, really well used by service users, and some of them are less well valued by partners and less well used by service users. Or, picking up my earlier theme, have been overtaken by other developments in the health and social care system, so they're not really used very much because they're not needed anymore because there's other provision in there. And to give you a bit of a feel for the range of things we found there, we found that people were using small aids, adaptations and equipment developments less than we would have expected them to, and less than we would want them to, because there's loads of evidence about the value and benefit of doing that. So for that area of service, we want to have more of a focus on it and make it easier for people to choose that going forward. On the flip side, when we look at hospital in-reach teams, so having wellbeing service workers in hospitals, it's fairly clear that that is not adding a lot of value to discharge planning. It's not really assisting people to get out of hospital more quickly, and that's because there are lots of other organisations, statutory and non-statutory organisations, operating in that environment now, and the wellbeing service therefore gets a fairly small number of referrals for that kind of help and support. So as a balance across the service review, what we're finding is that some areas of the service really need to be pushed and developed and continued. Some areas of the service we could probably stand down because they're not terribly well utilised. There's other provision available to pick up those gaps, and that obviously gives us the opportunity to move resources to the more popular, more important, more evidence-based kind of services within the overall budget that's available for the service. So before I start talking about the future, then in terms of what we're proposing to do, I'll just pause for a second and reflect on actually how good the provision has been by the current service arrangement model. It's a very well regarded service. It performs really well against the contract that was developed for it. It has managed within its finances, despite some fairly scary cost of living and kind of cost pressures in the system. And it's also been able to help us by changing tack slightly when we've asked them to deal with things like COVID vulnerabilities for people and new people arriving into Lincolnshire that need a bit of support to settle in. So it's been really flexible as well as being really effective as delivering its core service. The need for review now is really about how the world has changed around it and how people are interacting with some of the elements of the service rather than because the service is fundamentally problematic in terms of the way it's being delivered. So I think it's really important the committee kind of has that frame of reference in mind when we start thinking about what the future looks like. So following review, the future for us is that the wellbeing service needs to remain a low threshold, easy to access preventative service. That's fundamentally what's at its core. That raises the question with us about how we manage the continual upward demand pressures on the service, because I'm not expecting demand pressures to go down over the life of the service over the coming few years. So what we're planning on doing is at the front door of the service is building in some more mechanisms to encourage people to be pointed to simple things they can do for themselves, rather than everybody requiring an assessment and then having a simple solution offered to them. So, for example, if someone comes to the service at the moment and all they need is a bit of financial advice, they may end up having a full assessment. Well, all they needed really was someone to say, there's this really great service over here, they can help you with a bit of budgeting, a bit of and a bit of other financial kind of planning support that you need. So it'll remain low threshold. There'll be many channels for people to come to it, including self-referral, which is the biggest channel by which people access the service currently. But it will, at the front door, will be encouraging people to go and get things that they can just get for themselves if they don't need to come into the wellbeing service for a full assessment of their needs. The service currently uses eligibility criteria to decide whether someone needs to access the service or not. We will still have eligibility criteria in the front end of the service. There will be less of them, and they will be more focused on exactly what the need of the person is. Some of the eligibility criteria we use at the moment are more descriptive of just the characteristics of the individual rather than what they need. So one of them is, for example, are you over 65? Well, being over 65 doesn't indicate that you need anything in particular, and it doesn't tie into what the service is able to offer you either in terms of the range of things that are available. So some of the eligibility criteria we've got in now we will take out. A lot of them will remain the same, but they'll be written slightly differently, so they're more useful as a way of describing what people are expecting from the service and what the service is capable of supporting them to do. As you'd expect, things like remaining independent at home, maintaining their well-being, etc., will be front and centre, because that's the fundamental purpose of the service. We are on the small aids for daily living and equipment and minor adaptations front. We're actually planning on adding some capability for the service into that. So some things that currently require the person to step out of the wellbeing service and have a conversation with an occupational therapist, for example, we will delegate those things from our occupational therapy service to the wellbeing service. They can just do those things immediately. It'll cut down on some of the traffic, and it'll improve the service users' journey through the service, so they're not bumped from one service to another just because of a criteria that we're capable of changing and doing differently. There will be some emphasis on digital development. I think you've probably heard from lots of different service areas how we're trying to encourage people who may be not so familiar with digital to become more digitally able, and early on we're thinking that may be targeted on activity like enabling people to choose some retail digital things that might make their lives a little bit easier, things that turn the heating on and off, video doorbells, things like that. So not really high-tech technology, but lower-tech technology that people could really benefit from in terms of their sense of safety, well-being, independence, and so on at home. Fundamentally, the service will still do assessment, it will still provide generic support, it will still provide small aids and adaptations, but with some extension to the offer there. It will still offer all of those services and assessments in every setting where service users will be found. So workers will go into hospital, they will do assessment in hospital, but we won't have people dedicated sitting in hospitals waiting. for people to be seen. We won't provide resettlement services any longer because there's a really good alternative provider to provide that. Although if resettlement is part of a plan for someone, then we will still be able to do that. We just won't do it on an urgent basis out of hours in the service. Will be the plan. We will still provide a backup telecare response service for people. So for people who don't have a friend, family, neighbour who will be able to do that for them, they will be able to subscribe to a service which will provide that for them 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It'll still be a service user subscription based service. And just to give you a bit of a feel, at the moment that's we're charging just around £2 a week for a 24-hour, 365-day service cover. So it's not a dramatic expense for service users, and I don't expect the price for service user subscriptions to go up significantly when we relet the model. It may go up slightly because of cost of living pressures and so on, but I don't envisage it going up a great deal. On the telecare response activity, we're also looking to, this time around, commission a bit more flexibility about the way that operates for service users, because at the moment you subscribe on an ongoing basis or you don't subscribe on an ongoing basis, and what service users have said is it can be helpful for people to be able to subscribe for a holiday period so that their usual backup person goes on holiday, so they can opt into the service for short bursts of time to allow carers to go on holiday, to have a night off, to and for other periods of respite, for example. So we're looking to try and build a bit more flexibility into the way the service operates there. So if I pause there, because my colleague's going to talk to you a bit about the commercial nuts and bolts of the service going forward and what we're proposing to do with that. Is it, Chairman, do you want me to take questions about the service first, or should we let Carl?
Well, let Carl come, because I think the financial bit is one